I'm Riley, I'm 31. And last month, my mom cut me off because I missed my sister's birthday party. Why? Because my son was in the ICU. And she said I was making everything about me. No one came to the hospital. No one even asked if he made it. But they posted group pictures, held speeches, danced around cake like it was some fairy tale. I was sitting next to a beeping heart monitor wondering if I'd ever hear my son laugh again. That's when it hit me. I wasn't family to them anymore. I was just inconvenient. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments. Hit that subscribe button and stick around, okay? I don't even know where to start, honestly. This is one of those stories where, if I wasn't living it, I wouldn't believe it either. I'm Riley. I'm a single mom. I've got one kid, Jake. He's 6 now. He's the kind of kid that asks if the moon gets lonely. Sensitive, sweet. My whole world. We live in a small town in Ohio. Nothing fancy. Rents are high, schools are underfunded, and everyone knows your business before you do. But it's home. My family? Well, before everything blew up, we were close. Or at least I thought we were. My mom, Lisa, she's one of those women who's always perfectly put together. Matching purses. Always smells like vanilla and judgment. You know the type. She's the kind of person who brings a bundt cake to church but will also whisper that your dress is a little too tight for communion. My sister Megan is 5 years younger than me. She was the golden child. Still is, honestly. Cheer captain, got married at 24. Her husband owns like 5 vape shops or something. They live in a giant house and throw themed parties for their dog. I swear I'm not even exaggerating. Me? I was the screw-up. Had Jake when I was 28. His dad dipped before the baby shower. My mom never said it, but I could feel it in how she looked at me, like I'd ruined my chances. Like I was a walking mistake she couldn't edit out of the family Christmas card. But I still tried. I still showed up. Every birthday, every holiday, every passive-aggressive brunch. Because I thought that's what you do when you love your family. You make space for the discomfort. You forgive before they even ask. And then Jake got sick. It started with a fever. Just a little one. Then the cough. Then he started breathing weird, like he couldn't catch his breath. We went to the ER, and they admitted him immediately. Double pneumonia. Oxygen tank. IVs. Monitors beeping non-stop. That week felt like one long breath I couldn't let go of. I stayed with him the whole time. Slept in the weird chair, barely ate, held his hand every time they poked him for blood. The day of Megan's birthday party was the same day Jake got moved to the ICU. His oxygen levels dropped. He started shaking. I honestly thought I was gonna lose him. I texted the family group chat, told them everything. That Jake was in the ICU, that I couldn't make it, that I was scared. My mom replied with, "Understood. Hope he feels better." That was it. No call. No checking in. No "do you need anything?" Just hope he feels better. Meanwhile, Megan's Instagram was blowing up with photos from the party. A champagne wall. A custom cake shaped like a Prada bag. A DJ. She was turning 29, by the way. Not even a milestone. That night in the ICU. So, the next morning I'm still at the hospital. Jake's asleep, hooked up to more machines than I ever thought I'd see in real life. He looks so small in that bed. Like fragile, you know? I hadn't slept more than maybe 20 minutes at a time. Every beat made my heart jump. I was still in the same hoodie I'd thrown on when we rushed out the door. No makeup, hair a mess. I didn't care. Nothing mattered except him. Then my phone buzzed. It was from my mom. And I swear to God, I'll never forget what she said. "You missed your sister's big day." That hurt her more than you realize. We're all dealing with things, Riley. Maybe try thinking about others for once. I just stared at it. Like, I'm in a hospital. With my son. Who almost died. And she's mad I missed a birthday party? A dog in a tutu level party? And we're all dealing with things? What, like a cake flavor emergency? I didn't even reply at first. I was too stunned. You ever get so angry your hands shake? I couldn't even type. I just locked my phone and sat there trying not to cry too loud so I wouldn't wake Jake. But it didn't stop there. An hour later, Megan texts me. And hers? Was even worse. "You always make everything about you. I get that Jake's sick, but you could have at least called. Mom cried last night. You really hurt her." Like, are we living on the same planet? At that point, I snapped. I typed back, Jake almost stopped breathing yesterday. Sorry I didn't FaceTime in from the ICU while nurses shoved tubes down his throat. Hope the cake was good. She left me on read. No reply. Just silence. And from that moment things were different. Like some invisible switch flipped. Nobody in my family checked on me after that. Not one person. Not a call. Not a how's Jake doing. Nothing. Total radio silence. Like I'd broken some unwritten rule by putting my son first. That week, Jake slowly got better. Thank God. He was a little trooper. I held it together for him, but inside, I felt hollow. You ever feel like you've just been erased? I kept hoping maybe they'd realize. Maybe they'd apologize. But nope. 2 weeks later, I got a card in the mail from my mom. Not a get well card. Not a thinking of you card. It was an invite to Megan's gender reveal brunch. No note. No how are you? Just pastel pink and blue balloons and a poem about baby toes. That's when I realized I wasn't part of the family anymore. I was a ghost. So, I didn't go. Obviously. And that was the final straw for them. A few days after the gender reveal, I got a call from my mom. I picked up thinking maybe she was calling to finally ask about Jake. But instead she said this. We've decided to take a step back. You've made it clear where your priorities are. And it's exhausting trying to include someone who doesn't want to be part of the family. I laughed. Like actually laughed. And I said, are you serious right now? She said, I'm done being disrespected. So I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just hung up. And that was the day I stopped trying. I stopped texting. Stopped checking in. Stopped begging to be seen. But what they didn't know, what they still don't know, is that the silence was exactly what I needed, because what happened next, the job, the apartment, the secret I kept from all of them, started the day I walked away. And if you think I was done, oh no, that was just the beginning. So, after I hung up on my mom, I just sat on the floor, right there in my kitchen. The cheap linoleum felt cold through my leggings, and the fridge was humming louder than usual. I remember that detail because everything else felt dead silent, like even the universe was like, yeah. That happened. I kept staring at my phone waiting for her to call back. She didn't. I half expected Megan to text me, or maybe even my aunt. But nope, nothing. And I think that's when it finally sank in, they didn't care. Like truly. I could have died in that hospital with Jake and they would have been too busy picking party favors. That hurt more than I want to admit. But the thing is, once I got past that hurt, I felt something else underneath it. Anger. Not the screaming, breaking things kind of anger. This was different, colder, quieter, more focused. It's like, when you stop hoping they'll show up, you suddenly realize how much time you wasted waiting. And I was done waiting. I sat there thinking, what if I built something so solid they couldn't ignore it? What if I stopped begging for crumbs and made my own damn table? I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have a safety net. Hell, I didn't even have full groceries. But I had two things, Jake and an idea. Let me back up a sec. Before everything went to hell, I'd been running this little side hustle. Custom embroidery. Jackets, hats, tote bags. I started it during maternity leave just to keep my brain from melting. Turned out people liked my stuff. I had a tiny Etsy shop, maybe 200 followers on Instagram. Nothing crazy. But I remembered something Jake's nurse said to me randomly during one of those late nights. She was wearing this hospital cap with her name stitched in pink thread. I told her it was cute and she said, you should sell these. Hospitals never give us nice stuff. I'd totally buy more. At the time I just smiled. But now, sitting on that kitchen floor with nothing to lose, that comment hit different. So the next morning after I dropped Jake at school, I opened my laptop. I sat at our tiny dining table surrounded by crayons and cereal crumbs and I made a plan. I listed 5 new items. Custom scrub caps, mask holders, and ID lanyards with little sayings on them like, Nurse Strong, and Coffee, Scrubs, and Chaos. I took photos with my phone, wrote silly captions, and posted in every nurse and healthcare Facebook group I could find. The response? Immediate. People loved it. I got 37 orders in the first 2 days. I stayed up late, stitching by hand, wrapping each one in tissue paper with little thank you notes. I was exhausted, but it felt good. Because for the first time in forever, I wasn't waiting around for validation. I was building something. On my terms. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not a word. They still thought I was sitting around sulking, I'm sure. Maybe they even liked that idea, Riley the poor single mom, always struggling, always the disappointment. But they had no clue I was quietly grinding. Within a month, I had 500 orders. My kitchen became a packaging station. Jake would help me stick labels on envelopes like it was a game. He started calling himself Vice President of Zippers. I didn't correct him. It was adorable. I reinvested every dollar back into the business, got better supplies, opened a Shopify store, paid a local teen $10 an hour to help me cut fabric after school. And then one night, I saw it. This post went viral on TikTok. A nurse filmed an unboxing of one of my scrub caps, said it made her day. She tagged my shop and suddenly I had thousands of views, likes, comments. People asking for custom quotes, team bundles, gift boxes. That week, I made more money than I had in 3 months at my old job. And that's when it hit me. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm winning. I paid off my credit card, got Jake new shoes that actually fit, filled the fridge without checking the balance. For once I could breathe. And still silence from my family. Not that I expected them to know what was happening. I'd unfollowed them all, blocked their numbers. It was quiet and I needed that. I was in the zone. But what they didn't know, and this is where it gets good, was that I had a little surprise brewing. See, Megan was pregnant, right? And she had her baby registry set up on this big public site. And on the page it listed all her planned events, shower dates, sip and see. And get this, a mommy and me nurse appreciation brunch. Because apparently, her new baby was born a few weeks early and had to stay in the NICU for a couple days. So now she was passionate about nurses. Yeah, the same kind of nurses who sat with my kid while I cried in a chair with zero family support. So I had an idea. I donated 100 scrub caps, high-end ones, with affirmations, packaged like gifts. But I didn't send them from Riley. I used my shop name. No personal note. No mention of me. Just a kind gesture anonymously. I mailed them straight to the brunch venue. And that set everything in motion. Because Megan posted the brunch all over Instagram. And guess what was front and center on every table? My caps. People started tagging my shop. Followers tripled overnight. I got messages from influencers, nurse orgs, even a wholesale offer. But the best part? Megan had no idea it was me. And the moment she finally found out? So, the brunch. It was one of those over-the-top events that Megan loves. All pastel balloons, little welcome baby Ava cookies, a live harpist, because apparently harps are the vibe now? Anyway, I wasn't there obviously, but I saw everything through Instagram stories. Because while I'd blocked most of my family, I hadn't blocked Megan's best friend Becca. And Becca posts everything. God bless messy oversharers. So I'm scrolling through her stories that morning, half out of curiosity, half out of spite, and there it was. My caps. Each table had one folded perfectly in little gift bags. You could see the tags with my shop logo, Thread and Grace. I saw a nurse holding one up and smiling at the camera. Becca even panned over a sign that said, "Special thanks to Thread and Grace for the beautiful handmade gifts." I froze. There it was. My work, front and center. In the middle of a party I would have never been invited to. Among people who didn't even know I existed anymore. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did both. The comments started rolling in by that afternoon. Nurses asking if they could order more, friends tagging each other, people calling it the cutest brand ever. One of the guests posted a TikTok that hit 40K views in a day. And then it happened. 3 days later I got a DM on my shop account. From Megan. No hi. No hope you're doing well. Just, wait, is this you? I stared at the screen for a full minute before I replied. Yep. She didn't answer right away. But I could see she read it. Twice. Then she finally replied with, "Why would you send those to my event?" I just wrote back, "Because nurses deserve nice things. And because I knew you'd never invite me." She left me on read. Again. Typical. But I knew she was rattled. Because suddenly I wasn't the screw-up sister. I wasn't the family embarrassment. I was the silent name behind the biggest hit at her baby brunch. And I wasn't done. About a week later, my mom called me. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Hi, Riley. I saw some posts from Megan's party, and I guess you've been busy. I didn't realize you were doing that sewing thing so seriously. It looked really professional. Anyway, I hope you're well. Maybe we can talk soon." That sewing thing. Like I was gluing macaroni to paper plates. And still no mention of Jake. No apology. Just surprised that I wasn't curled up in a corner somewhere crying about them. I didn't call back. She tried again the next day. Texted this time. "We're having a small family dinner Sunday. It would mean a lot if you came. Jake too." And I swear I almost said yes. Almost. Because there's a part of me, that tired little girl part, that still wanted them to see me. To finally say we were wrong. But I knew better now. So instead I sent her a photo. It was me and Jake, sitting at our little kitchen table, surrounded by boxes of orders, smiling with our hands covered in fabric scraps. No caption. Just that. She didn't reply. And that was fine. Because here's the thing no one tells you about starting over, the silence is brutal at first. But eventually, it becomes peace. I stopped waiting for them to clap. I started clapping for myself. And business? Took off. I mean, really took off. Within a few months, I upgraded my apartment, got a little studio space downtown, started hiring full-time help. I did a podcast, got featured in a blog. A nurse from Grey's Anatomy, like the actual show, followed me and ordered 5 custom caps for a charity event. Jake started telling people my mom owns a company. And every time he said it, my heart swelled. But the real moment, the one that made everything click, came one random Thursday. Jake had a school assembly. He was getting a Kind Heart award because apparently he told a new kid, "You can sit with me. No one should feel alone at lunch." That's my kid. Anyway, I'm sitting in the back of the cafeteria, trying not to cry, and this mom leans over and whispers, "Aren't you the one who makes those scrub hats? My sister's a nurse. She's obsessed with your stuff." And for the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not for my failures, not for what I wasn't, but for what I built. And that feeling? Better than any apology I never got. But don't get me wrong, this story isn't over. Because while I was out here building something real, my family, they were crumbling. Quietly. Secretly. And I didn't find out until I got a call from someone I never expected. Megan's husband. And what he told me changed everything. So, I hadn't heard from anyone in my family for a while. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive voicemails from my mom trying to guilt me into showing up to some family game night. She only hosted for Instagram pictures. And honestly, I was good. Like, actually good. Business was steady, Jake was thriving, and I'd finally gotten to this place where I didn't flinch every time my phone buzzed. Peace. Real peace. Until one day it rang. And when I saw the name, I almost dropped my coffee. Chris, Megan's husband. I stared at it like it was radioactive. We had never talked one-on-one. Like ever. He was always just there. At holidays. Kind of quiet. Very into his fantasy football and protein smoothies. He used to call me Meg's sister like I didn't have a name. So yeah, when he called, I picked up because something had to be very wrong. And oh boy, I had no idea. He starts off with, "Hey, I know this is weird. I wasn't even sure if I should call, but I didn't know who else to talk to." I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He goes quiet for a second, then says, "You were right about them." I didn't say anything. I just waited. Then he lets it out. Apparently, Megan's been having a full-blown meltdown behind the scenes. Like, full spiral. After the baby shower brunch, the one where my scrub caps were the highlight, she started acting different. He said she got obsessed with the idea that everyone was talking about me. That I did it on purpose to outshine her. Which, okay, I did know she'd see them. But outshine her? Sis, I just gave people something useful. Sorry your balloon wall couldn't compete. Anyway, Chris says Megan became paranoid. Started demanding he stop following anyone who mentioned my shop. Yelled at him for liking a nurse's post that tagged me. Then she went through his phone and found out he'd ordered a cap for his sister, who's a NICU nurse. Yeah, that caused a fight. But it gets worse. He tells me our mom, had been adding fuel to the fire. Saying things like, "Riley always finds a way to make things about her, and don't be surprised if she tries to use her little business to worm back into the family." Worm? Back? In? Like I was some parasite begging to be invited to their drama-filled dinners. Chris said he kind of bought into it all for a while, but then he started following my business, quietly, from a burner Instagram, and he told me something I'll never forget. I saw how many people love what you do. I read the reviews, and I thought, this doesn't sound like someone who's trying to get attention. This sounds like someone who actually cares. Y'all. I sat there holding the phone just stunned, because no one in my family had ever said anything like that to me. Not once. Then he drops the bomb. He's thinking about leaving Megan. She's not the same person anymore, he said. She's obsessed with appearances. Everything's about being the center of attention. It's like she's more in love with Instagram than with her own kid. And listen, I didn't cheer or gloat or anything. I just listened, because truthfully, I felt bad for him. But then he asked me a question that gave me chills. If I leave, would it be okay if I still stayed in Jake's life? I was like, wait, what? And he said, you're the only one in the family who actually talks to him like a person. You're the only one who shows up. I know I've never said much to you, but I've watched. And I think Jake deserves better than whatever dysfunction we're all swimming in. I almost cried, because for the first time someone saw it. Someone saw me. I told him yes, of course. That Jake liked him. That I appreciated him even asking. He thanked me and said, no matter what happens, don't stop doing what you're doing. You've built something real. And then he hung up. I sat on my couch in total silence. Like, what just happened? But here's the wildest part. Less than 24 hours later, I get a call from my mom. Again, I don't pick up, but she leaves a voicemail. Riley, I heard Chris called you. I don't know what he said, but I hope you're not letting him manipulate you. He's trying to cause drama. And honestly, I think it's really inappropriate for you to be involved in their marriage like this. Excuse me? I didn't respond. I was done playing that game. But then Megan texted, are you trying to ruin my life? You always wanted to be the favorite. Congrats. You win. Hope you're happy. I didn't reply to her either, as I was happy. Not because she was falling apart, but because for once I wasn't letting myself be dragged down with them. I was building my own life, and people, even people I never expected, were noticing. But don't worry. The real revenge? It wasn't just their drama. It was what came next. Because guess who got nominated for a Regional Women in Business Award? And guess who was invited to speak on a panel? With Megan in the audience? You'll want to hear how that played out. So it happened. The thing I never thought I'd experience in my lifetime. They invited me to speak. I got the email on a Wednesday. Subject line, congratulations, you've been selected for the Women Who Rise panel. I honestly thought it was spam at first. I almost deleted it. But nope, it was real. An actual business group. One I'd followed for years but never had the guts to apply to, picked me to speak on a panel for women entrepreneurs in the community. The panel theme? Turning pain into power. I sat there rereading it like 5 times, hands shaking, Jake in the background yelling about cereal. And then I saw the lineup. I was gonna be on stage with 2 local CEOs, a trauma counselor who wrote a best-selling book, and Megan. Yeah, that Megan. My sister. Turns out she'd been booked months ago as some kind of momfluencer voice. I didn't even know she was still doing that. Apparently she's been running a postpartum positivity blog that gets decent traffic, mostly sponsored by diaper brands and formula companies. When I tell you I laughed, I didn't even hesitate. I hit reply and wrote, thank you so much. I accept. Jake was watching me from the kitchen and goes, why are you smiling like that? I just said, because, baby, sometimes life writes better comebacks than we ever could. Fast forward 3 weeks. Ballroom. Downtown hotel. Full glam. Professional lighting. Rows and rows of folding chairs filled with women in blazers and bold lipstick, sipping mocktails with orange peels in them. I was terrified. But also, I felt powerful. I looked around at all the faces, not a single one related to me, and thought, I belong here. They had us backstage, mic'd up and waiting. That's when I saw her. Megan. She was already talking to one of the organizers, all fake laugh and teeth, holding a glass of something sparkling. And when she turned and saw me, her face dropped. She blinked, then smiled too wide, like someone who just got caught doing something shady but is trying to play it cool. Wow, Riley, I didn't know you were invited. I just smiled back. Crazy, right? Guess they ran out of moms who talked to their sisters. She laughed, but it was tight. Forced. Like her spanks were suffocating her soul. We didn't say much else. Then it was time. The moderator let us out one by one. Megan walked out just before me. People clapped politely. But when they called my name, I swear the energy shifted. A whole row of nurses, people I'd made scrub caps for, stood up and cheered. One even waved a little banner that said, "Threat and Grace 2 Hearts." I caught Megan looking. And then we sat. 5 women. 1 stage. And I told my story. Not the perfect version. The real one. I told them about being a single mom. About starting a business at my kitchen table with thrifted fabric and a dream no one believed in. About being cut off by my own family. About giving away scrub caps just to feel like I still mattered. I talked about the night I almost gave up and the nurse who'd med me that her cap made her feel human again. I told them how Jake helped me pack orders, how we learned together, how I stopped chasing approval and started chasing purpose. When I finished, people clapped. Like, really clapped. Some stood up. I looked at Megan. She wasn't clapping, just sitting there, staring straight ahead, jaw tight. The moderator passed her the mic. Megan launched into her usual routine, being a new mom, mental health, societal pressure, etc. Which valid stuff, obviously. But it felt scripted, like a Pinterest caption. And now that I was seeing her from the outside, she didn't look powerful. She looked exhausted. When the Q&A started, a woman in the back raised her hand. "This question is for Riley. How did you handle people in your life who didn't believe in you?" I could feel Megan tense up beside me. I took a breath. At first, I begged them to care. I twisted myself into knots trying to make them proud. But eventually, I realized their silence wasn't about me. It was about what they couldn't handle. So I stopped begging, and I started building. Now I let my success speak for itself. Applause. Megan wouldn't look at me. After the panel, people swarmed. Some asked to take selfies. Others just hugged me. One nurse said, "You helped me feel seen on my worst days." I thanked her and tried not to cry. Megan came up to me near the exit. Alone. She looked small. She said, "I didn't realize how serious your business got." I looked her in the eye. "Yeah, that happens when people leave you behind. You get serious." She nodded. Chris left. I didn't flinch. "I know. He told me." Her face went pale. "You talked to him?" "Yeah. He called me. Said he wanted to stay in Jake's life." I said yes. Silence. Then she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to get this bad." And for the first time in forever, I believed her. But that didn't mean I was gonna play nice. "I'm not here to fix it, Megan. I'm just here to live my life." She nodded again. No defense. No tears. Just walked away. I watched her leave. And I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel smug. I felt done. Because revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's sitting on stage while the people who doubted you have to watch you shine. But what happened next? That was the real justice. The kind I never saw coming. Because a week later I got a letter in the mail. From my dad. And what was inside? So yeah. A week after the panel, this envelope shows up in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name written in blocky, stiff handwriting I hadn't seen in a long time. My dad's handwriting. I just stared at it. For a long time. I couldn't even bring myself to open it at first. This was a man who hadn't said a single word to me in, 2 years? Maybe more? After everything, the way he stood there while my mom tore me down, the way he didn't stop her, the way he just let me fade out of the family, I honestly thought I'd never hear from him again. And honestly, I was okay with that. But now here was this envelope, just sitting on my kitchen table. Like it wasn't a bomb. It took me 3 days to open it. And when I did, it wasn't a letter. It was a check, written out to me, for $30,000. I blinked, looked at it again, rubbed my eyes like maybe I was seeing it wrong. But no, it was real. A cashier's check, made out to me. There was a sticky note attached to it. Nothing else. Just this. Use it for your shop. I should have believed in you. I'm sorry, Dad. That's it. No call. No apology letter. No explanation. Just a sticky note and 30 grand. And I know what you're probably thinking. That's amazing. But the truth? I didn't know how to feel. Like, where was this energy when I was broke, crying in the back seat of my car with Jake asleep in the front? Where was this when I begged him not to let Mom cut me off? When I asked for just a little support? I sat there holding that stupid sticky note, crying harder than I had in months. Because yeah, the money was nice, but it was too late for I'm sorry. You don't get to ignore your kid for years and then throw money at them like it's a Band-Aid. Still, I couldn't bring myself to rip it up or return it because, and this is hard to admit, a part of me still wanted him to believe in me, even after everything. And then came the real twist. I was telling my best friend Jess about it over coffee. She looked at the check and froze. Wait, this isn't just from him, she said. What do you mean? I asked. She pulled out her phone, did some digging, and then showed me something that made my jaw drop. Apparently, my dad had sold his boat. Not just any boat. His pride and joy. The one he'd named after my mom, Linda's Escape. The one he spent every weekend polishing like it was a vintage car. The one he wouldn't let anyone even look at too long. He sold it. Quietly. Listed it on some collector's site. Got exactly $30,000 for it. And gave all of it to me. Suddenly, this wasn't just a guilt check. It was a sacrifice. And that hit different. But I still didn't know what to do. So I sat with it for a week. Then one night, Jake and I were packing orders together. He was doodling little smiley faces on the packing slips like he always does, and he looks at me and goes, "Do you think Grandpa still loves you?" I froze, because we hadn't talked about Grandpa at all. I didn't even know Jake remembered him like that. I said, "I don't know, bud. Maybe?" "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "I just think it's nice he tried, even if it was late." That's when I made my decision. The next morning, I deposited the check. But not for inventory. Not for ads. I used it to put down a deposit on a tiny storefront 2 blocks from my apartment. Yup, a real, physical space. Thread and Grace was finally getting a front door. I found this cozy little spot tucked between a flower shop and a dentist. Exposed brick walls, creaky floors, huge front window. Nothing fancy but mine. And the first person I invited inside? Jake. I let him write T&G on the window in washable marker. He wrote it backwards, but I didn't care. We stood there together in that empty room, and I thought, this is my life now. This is what I built. No handouts. Just heart. Later that week, I wrote my dad a letter. I didn't call. I didn't drive over. I just wrote, "Dad, I got your check. I don't know what changed, and I don't need you to explain it. But I want you to know I didn't use it to fix my life. My life was already working. I used it to grow something I built without you. You missed a lot, but if you're serious about showing up now, you'll have to do more than write a check." Riley. I didn't hear back right away. But then one afternoon, a man came into the shop while I was setting up shelving. He stood in the doorway quiet. It was him. He looked older, softer. He didn't say anything, just handed me a thermos of coffee. My favorite kind. Then he said, "Can I help paint?" And you know what? I let him. Not because he deserved it, but because I was finally strong enough to choose who I let in. And that was my power. But don't worry, we're not done yet. Because Megan? Oh, she wasn't going to let me have the last word. And what she did next? Let's just say it cost her more than followers. So just when things were finally settling, Megan blew it all up. I should have seen it coming. Because some people don't know how to lose gracefully, especially not in front of an audience. See, the panel went viral. A clip of me talking about building a business from rock bottom got shared by a nurse influencer on TikTok. Then a small business blog picked it up. Then a local news station ran a segment. The headline, "Single Mom Builds Six-Figure Brand After Being Cut Off by Her Family." Oof. That last part? Yeah, it hit a little too close to home for Megan. She texted me the day the article dropped. No hi. No congrats. Just, "You made us look like villains." I didn't reply. Because if the shoe fits, she sent another one. "You've always needed attention. Glad you finally found a way to get it." Still didn't reply. And that apparently drove her over the edge. Because the next thing I know, she's posting a 12-slide Instagram rant about toxic family members, narratives that aren't true, and people who weaponize trauma for clout. It was obvious she was talking about me. Even used a blurry screenshot of the panel in one of the slides. She didn't tag me, but she didn't have to. People knew. And they started commenting. Hard. Some defended her. But most didn't. They called her out. "Your sister literally helped save lives during the pandemic. You had a brunch for a baby while her kid was in the hospital? Jealousy is loud." I didn't say a word. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to defend myself. The truth was doing just fine without me. Megan deleted the post within 48 hours. then set her account to private, then ghosted everyone, including my mom. And you'd think that'd be the end of it, right? But nope, because Megan had signed a sponsorship deal with the mommy wellness brand, a big one. And they saw the drama, the comments, the screenshots. They pulled the deal. Just like that, tens of thousands gone. I found out through someone she used to work with who messaged me like, "Not gonna lie, kinda wild watching Karma in 4K. And look, I wasn't happy she lost the deal. I don't root for people to fail, but I was relieved that I didn't have to keep carrying the weight of her bitterness, because that's the thing people don't tell you about healing. It's not just about letting go of pain. It's about refusing to carry what was never yours to begin with." A month later, I opened my storefront officially. Ribbon cutting and everything. Jake wore a little bow tie. My dad came, in a shirt that said Vice President of Zippers, that Jake made with fabric paint. There were customers lined up outside. Nurses, moms, strangers who followed the journey online. People brought flowers, cupcakes, even a custom sign that read, "Built from love, stitched with strength." And somewhere in the middle of all the chaos and joy, I looked around and realized, I didn't just build a business. I built a life, community, a space where people felt seen. And no family fallout, no bitter sister, no messy past could take that away. At night, I tucked Jake into bed. He looked up at me and said, "Mom, I'm really proud of you." I smiled, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I'm proud of me too." Because for the first time ever, that was the truth, not performative, not a front, not said through gritted teeth. I meant it. I'd survived betrayal, silence, shame, guilt, and grief, and still built something beautiful. But if you're thinking this is the end, not quite, because life has a funny way of giving you one final twist. And mine showed up 3 months later, with a clipboard, and a badge, and a question I never thought I'd hear again. So it's 3 months after the grand opening. The store's running like a dream. We've got a steady stream of orders, 3 part-time employees, and a growing online waitlist. Jake's thriving. My dad's still awkward but trying. Even my mom's been quiet, which honestly is a gift. Then on a Thursday morning, I'm in the shop adjusting a display when the bell rings. I turn and see a woman standing in the doorway. Mid-40s, neat blazer, clipboard in hand and a badge around her neck. Department of Child and Family Services. My stomach drops. She walks up and says, "Are you Riley Matthews?" I nod, heart pounding. She says, "We received a report about potential neglect of your son, Jake. We need to ask you a few questions." Everything went quiet. I swear I could hear the ticking of the clock behind the register. Neglect? My son? I couldn't breathe. I felt like the floor had opened up beneath me. I managed to say, "There must be some mistake." She stayed calm, flipping open the folder. "These things are often misunderstandings. We just have to follow up. Do you mind if I take a quick look around and ask Jake a few questions?" Jake was in the back, on his tablet eating snacks, surrounded by coloring books and more love than most kids get in a lifetime. I nodded, numb. Led her to the back room, sat down, watched as she talked to him gently, professionally. And the whole time my mind was racing. Who would do this? Jake answered every question like a champ. Told her about school, the shop, the Zippers Club. He started with one of my staff members. He even showed her the little Employee of the Month badge I made him out of felt. After 20 minutes, she came back out, softer this time. "There's no issue here. He's happy, healthy, and very loved. I'll be closing this case immediately." I exhaled so hard I nearly collapsed. She handed me a card and said, "You're doing a great job. I just wanted you to know that." She left, and I sat there, hands shaking, trying to figure out how this happened. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Voicemail. I pressed play, and there it was. My mother's voice. "I hate that it's come to this, but someone had to intervene. Jake needs structure, Riley, not a gift shop and chaos." She went on and on about how she was just trying to help, how I'd shut everyone out, how she feared for Jake's stability. I couldn't listen to the whole thing. I deleted it. That was the moment I cut the cord. Blocked her number. Changed the locks. Filed a harassment report just to cover my bases. And I made a new promise to myself. My peace would not be compromised. Not by family. Not by guilt. Not by anyone who thinks blood gives them the right to blow up the life I fought to rebuild. That night, Jake and I made pizza. We danced around the kitchen to 2000s throwbacks. We made a fort in the living room. We laughed. And when he fell asleep, hand on my shoulder, I looked at him and thought, this is all I need. This is home. No panel. No storefront. No award. Just peace. And him. But of course, life always has one last card to play. Because 3 weeks later, I got a certified letter in the mail. Legal envelope. Thick paper. Embossed seal. Inside? A will. My grandfather's. And guess whose name was on it? And whose wasn't? So yeah, a legal envelope shows up. Certified mail. Thick paper. Heavy seal. I thought it was junk at first. Maybe a bank statement or a tax form. But then I saw the return address. A law firm. My grandfather's estate attorney. I opened it. Hands trembling. Jake was in the other room, humming to himself while building a Lego tower. Inside, a copy of my grandfather's will, along with a letter from the attorney. As a named beneficiary, you are entitled to a copy of this document. Please contact our office to arrange transfer of assets. I blinked. Wait, what? I hadn't spoken to my grandfather in years. He was always kind of quiet, observant. Let my mom and Megan take the spotlight at family gatherings. But I remember being little, maybe 6 or 7, and sitting on the porch with him watching him carve wood and sip coffee. He never said much, but he always listened. He passed away the year Jake was born. I didn't even go to the funeral. Wasn't invited. Found out through a Facebook post Megan made. Rest easy, Papa. Thank you for everything. I figured that was that. Another chapter closed without me. But apparently not quite, because as I read through the will, I got to a section titled, Addendum Handwritten Additions, Notarized. My heart stopped. There it was. In his handwriting. A little crooked, shaky, but still him. To Riley, my granddaughter, I've watched from a distance. I don't always understand this world, but I see who fights for it. You've earned more than this family ever gave you. So I'm giving you what I can. The cabin is yours. The land too. Do what you want with it. Just promise me one thing. Don't stop building. I dropped the paper. The cabin. His cabin. The one tucked in the mountains, 2 hours outside the city. The one no one was allowed to touch. The one my mom always said was old and worthless and needed to be torn down. He left it to me, not to Megan, not to my mom. I called the law office immediately. The woman on the other end smiled when I said my name. Ah, Riley, your grandfather talked about you often. He used to bring in photos of your shop. I choked up. Photos? Of my shop? He'd been watching. Quietly. Lovingly. Even when I thought no one in the family cared. She gave me the access instructions. Keys. Deed. Said it was mine as of that day. I told Jake after school. He said, wait, like a whole house? We're rich. I laughed and told him no, it was a cabin with squirrels and no Wi-Fi and probably spiders. He said, cool. Can we paint it? We drove up that weekend. Just me, Jake, and a cooler full of snacks. The cabin was dusty. Quiet. Smelled like cedar and memories. But it was solid. Beautiful in its own wild, worn-out way. There were photos still on the wall. One of me as a kid holding a fishing pole. One of Jake as a baby framed. I hadn't sent that to anyone, but somehow Grandpa had it. We spent the whole weekend cleaning, sweeping, scrubbing. And that night, with Jake snuggled beside me in a sleeping bag, I looked up at the stars through the old wooden rafters and whispered, thank you. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I belonged. The next week, my mom found out. Of course she did. Word got around fast. She called. I didn't answer. She texted. You manipulated him. That was supposed to be Megan's. I stared at the message and laughed. Because once again, she misunderstood the assignment. I didn't manipulate anyone. I just kept going. And when people really watch, they see the truth. My grandfather saw it. Even if it was in silence. So here's the thing. I didn't burn bridges. They lit the match. I just stopped standing in the fire. And when I walked away, I found my own ground, my own purpose, my own home. So if you're sitting there wondering whether it's worth it to walk away from the people who don't see you, let me tell you, yes, it's terrifying. It's lonely, but eventually, you'll stop surviving and start living. And one day you'll look around and realize they didn't leave you behind. You left them behind. And thank God you did. How did you feel about the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Speech balloon. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video and hit that subscribe button for more. Thanks for watching.